Hey yo, Alice here. I was thinking about when military force is justified, as you do. One of those random moments in the afternoon while baking pound cake. Recipe in the description below, along with a book recommendation unrelated to pound cakes, but on when war makes sense. So let's start with high level principles and then dig down. First, let's understand why wars are fought. I'm not claiming this is universal. If you're a genocidal tyrant, this probably doesn't apply to you. You be you. But do check out the pound cake recipe. It might put you in a better mood.
War, in its simplest form, is a continuation of politics. That's from Karl von Clausewitz, seen here wondering if his epaulets can be made any bigger. War occurs when at least one side believes the expected benefits of military action exceed the expected costs relative to the political objective. War ends when new information, shifting power, or rising costs make continued fighting less desirable than a negotiated outcome, or when one side is decisively defeated. War ends when costs flip the expected utility calculus. War is expensive in both blood and treasure, and so the justifications called jus ad bellum to enter into one need to be high. Here's my golden list for the United States. A military response is justified when 1. We are attacked militarily, or are facing an imminent attack. We have the right, and perhaps even the obligation, to defend. 2. An ally is attacked without provocation. Notice the without provocation bit. I'm not going to defend a mean girl, even if she's my best friend. That's why I don't have a lot of mean girl friends. 3. The international rules-based order established after the Second World War and codified in the UN Charter is seriously violated. 4. Preventing a genocide. By the way, a military response does not necessarily mean going in with tanks, planes, and guns. It could be indirect, such as arming proxies, providing them with ISR, knowledge, and/or logistics, using clandestine capabilities or cyber as we are increasingly doing. Good. We have justifications out of the way. But this isn't enough. To constrain the costs of war, blood, and treasure, we need some basic operational guidelines for every conflict. Conflict must 1. Have a justification. 2. Have clear objectives. What to achieve, by when, with what result, at what cost. 3. Be proportional. A nuclear bomb is not likely a good response if one of our citizens is punched in the nose in an unprovoked attack.
Even if she's Billie Eilish, and I am tempted to have a nuclear response if she's punched in the nose. She's got a beautiful nose.
4. Be scoped in time, people, and materiel. 5. Have the broad support of our citizens. 6. Be realistic. We have the resources and capabilities to achieve our goals. 7. Not interfere with the internal affairs of another country unless one of the justifying conditions is met, and even then, care is needed. For example, in the case of the Rwandan genocide, as awful as it was, I would have hesitated because military intervention still requires feasibility, bounded objectives, domestic legitimacy, and a plausible mechanism for reducing total killing. Let's put this in practice with some recent examples. First Gulf War. Pass. Pass justification like expelling Iraq from Kuwait and defending the rules-based order. Clear objectives. Realistic as we had a realistic chance of success. Clearly scoped like not trying to overthrow Saddam Hussein and imposing democracy. I'm looking at you, Second Gulf War. Bosnia. Pass. Strong justification like preventing genocide. Scoped. No ground troops, excluding NATO peacekeepers after the Dayton Accord. Limited to airstrikes. Had a realistic chance of stopping the elements of the Serbian armed forces from continuing. Somalia. Fail. Noble justification to prevent starvation and famine. But it wouldn't have passed my operational guidelines. The biggest one being not interfering with the internal affairs of another country. Second Iraq War. A big red F. Poor justification. They were not involved with 9/11, did not have weapons of mass destruction to threaten us. Operationally, it sucked. We went in to overthrow Saddam Hussein, but ended up trying to build up a country. What about Iran? A big glaring F. Unclear justification. No indication of an imminent attack, not attacking us militarily, and not violating the international rules-based order. It fails many of my operational rules. No clear justification, unclear objectives, not really proportional, not scoped, unpopular, and we are interfering with the internal affairs of another country. It even fails the realism aspects. Sure, we're great at blowing things up, but we absolutely suck at nation building. I'm looking at you, Second Gulf War.
Force is justified only for serious purposes, under bounded conditions, with clear objectives and a realistic path from military means to political ends. So now you have a checklist for justifications and operational guidelines. How would you rate your war? Answer below in the comment section.